Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of In the Spotlight. I'm Mike Kenichi. Very happy to have as our guest today. He is the newly appointed head coach of the Derby Football Red Raiders. He had an outstanding career at Woodland around 2011, 12, and 13. It is my honor to introduce to you the new head coach of the Derby Red Raiders, Coach Jeremy Clark. And Coach, I want to thank you for coming on today. This is a real honor.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
So, Coach, let me ask you this. Talk to me a little bit about growing up. And did you grow up in Prospect, Beacon Falls? I mean, where did you grow up?
I'm from Beacon Falls. My parents are originally from Oxford and Seymour, right on the Housatonic River. So, been from the valley for a long time.
Right. And when did you start playing football? Was it a young age, or did it kind of happen over time?
It was high school. I always wanted to play football. Tried to play midgets football when I was in the 6th grade. Kind of a big undertaking trying to join the 8th graders. I was a baseball player all through my life, and up until then, I didn't know if football was going to be it for me. And then day one, all my friends they were playing football, and I came on in weightlifting in the summer in 2009, and loved it ever since. Fell in love with it.
Right. And Coach, Woodland, I think their first year of existence was 2001. They played a JV schedule, did really well, went 8-2 or 7-3, something like that. So right off the bat, as a young kid, you got to see some great Woodland football. I mean, just talk about that a little bit, because they had quite the run from 2000 to 2007 or 2001 to 7. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was very lucky growing up in Beacon Falls, being in elementary school right during the prime of Woodland's young start, winning 2 state championships back to back. Me and all my friends, we memorized the roster to the point that we had Madden teams where we had every single player, who some of them ended up being our coaches later in life, which is phenomenal, which is a testament to the great coaching that Woodland has had through the years, and just the great athletes that have come out of there. Just growing up, going to every game on Friday night, it was just a surreal experience. Especially, I remember the 2004 Seymour Woodland game.
Yeah,
Thanksgiving at Woodland, packed door to door with people, and I just was on the sideline where I saw Jeff Jones make a huge catch, and with my buddies and my dad, and it's just a moment I'll never forget. It kind of made me fall in love with both the Woodland program in itself and its terrific culture it had at the time, and just the game.
Right. And at the time, Coach, I mean, before Woodland had come into existence, I mean, the real teams in the NBL, of course, were Ansonia and Naugatuck. You had Seymour, who came in '94, and they won a couple NBL titles. And, of course, Holy Cross. But really, they were the big four. That was it. And then Woodland kind of got in there, and they had a nice rivalry with the Ansonia. I know the Seymour games, against Seymour always gets mentioned, but they had quite the rivalry against Ansonia for a very long time.
Oh, absolutely. And some crazy Ansonia games that came down to the wire, or even sometimes where Ansonia got the better of us. I mean, who can forget Alex Thomas playing at Ansonia? Yeah. I think he rushed for 600 yards against Woodland in a game. I think it set a state record. I was a game I was at, I think it was 2007. But just that rivalry, especially playing at Nolan, and I know you guys are familiar with Chris Anderson, Derby alumni. He's very passionate about that Ansonia game, and he always reflected that well and communicated that rivalry very, very well. That was a top priority of his, even if the motto we've always had, and that's something Tim Shea had, was we're going to beat the team one exit north and one exit south, and that was always Seymour, and then you had Naugatuck, but Ansonia is in the same right as that. So definitely a great rivalry that no one talks about enough, really. But Woodland during the younger years came up and weren't afraid to play the big guys and the big names, and that's just a testament to the coaching that they had.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong, Coach. You had Coach Shea your first 2 years, and then Coach Phipps your final year, or was it Shea all 3?
It was Coach Shea all 4 years. Yeah. And Phipps was our offensive coordinator. Had Adam Schultz, who has the head coach at Post University now, and Chris Moffo, who had a stint head coaching at Woodland, and he's now a D coordinator at Naugatuck. So the room was pretty stacked with future head coaches.
Right. And talk to me a little. You just brought up Naugatuck. Woodland has had quite the rival with Naugatuck over the years. And that's the thing that's really good about the Woodland program too, is they established themselves so well that it gave those other teams another rival to have. Naugatuck always had Ansonia and Seymour. Then with Woodland and the games going back and forth over the years, that gave them a third rival game. So I mean, it really Woodland really made its mark early on in the NBL.
Yeah, especially with those bigger teams, like you're saying, the lower valley is always going to have good rosters, and there's always a good amount of kids. It's just something that the valley brings out in these players, and just the great appreciation that everyone has for the culture and the long-standing history of these programs. Naugatuck and Woodland sure have had quite the amount of battles. Now that they have a trophy in my former freshman football coach George Pino's name, good family friend who sadly passed away when I was a senior in high school. The game means a whole lot to George, who was originally from Naugatuck, and it meant a whole lot to guys like Tim Shea who played at Naugatuck. And
right.
You know, it's a lot of we came from here, and you know, Woodland at the time was the coaching staff. They called themselves a gang of misfits because they were all either turned away from their own hometown school, or they were looked past for another older coach to come in, and Woodland was arms wide open, taking these new guys in by the boatload, and it just amplified games like Naugatuck, where we had alumni who were the coaches who, you know, nothing like beating your alum. I'm sure if you were to talk to one of my players, they would talk about what I feel about trying to beat Woodland, especially in the upcoming fall.
Right. And Coach, for a guy who wasn't able to play Pop Warner, you had quite the football career at Woodland. I believe you made all division NVL your junior year, and then you made all NVL as a whole your senior year, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I went all division as a sophomore and a junior, and all league as a senior, and all New Haven Register second team as a senior. I'd give it to my coaches who pushed me immensely at an early age. My freshman year, I think I was 1 week into weightlifting, and you had that scared look in your eyes in the weight room, and you see all the big pictures around because they all had the blown up pictures of the state championship teams, and I knew all their names. And Coach Shea tapped on me because I was a taller freshman and moved me up to varsity to do weightlifting, and that's the best thing he could have ever done, because he put me in a spot to be uncomfortable early. So when they gave me the nod to go, okay, you're going to be starting by the end of your freshman year, going into your sophomore year, I knew it was a great responsibility and a great undertaking. And my classmates, and there was a few of us who had that honor to start as sophomores. We wanted to come together and make sure that senior class had the best possible senior season and compete. Of course, it's always about competing. So being pushed by those seniors and the coaches mixed, I really lucked out with that, because without them, I don't think I would be even in this spot, you know?
Right. And so tell me, Coach, how did your coaching career begin? Like, how did you know in high school that you wanted to coach after high school? I mean, how did it all begin for you?
I knew pretty immediately after high school I wanted to take a shot at coaching. I came around the following year, just was at every game, because a lot of those kids start, especially if Tanner Kingsley, who was a terrific quarterback, who's now an offensive coordinator up in Anna Maria College, just having a terrific coaching career in his own right. I wanted to come and watch his senior year, and I was like, I can't leave the game. I didn't want to leave the game more than anything. So while I'm going through college, the opportunity to come help out Coach Phipps's first year as a head coach, coming back and helping out for a week in springs. Like, whenever my schedule permitted, I wanted to just be around the program and give back. Shea always said to a handful of us was, one day we're going to have to tap on you to come back and help us out. And I felt like that was a big honor to come back and help out the O-line wherever I can. And I had a very, very close relationship even to this day with Chris Maffo, who was my offensive line coach for all 4 years. And he's like another father figure in my life. I go to him about basically anything now. And he had the chances when he started his head coaching career at Woodland. I was like, all right, I want to be back. I want to come back. I want to help you out. And the stars aligned in 2018 really to come back full time as a coach, and not really the guy who went and filmed or just was around on Friday nights. It was more or less like, all right, I want to start impacting these kids' lives and help out and give them the same experience I did, and lift up the kids that need that extra attention, and just watch silently in the back, especially with the coaching staff I was on in 2018 and seeing the great stuff they did after being a 1-9 football team 2 years prior.
Right. Now, let me ask you, I know Coach Anderson came back in 2015 for a season. Were you able to coach with him that year?
No, but
No.
I was able to coach him in 2018. So he came back
Right.
as offensive coordinator. So I was in the room with him, and he's a very passionate coach.
Yeah. And I mean, he was around Woodland for 20 years, one way or another. And he really built that program. And then Coach Shea kept it running, and Phipps for a year. And now, it's a very respectable program. And I think it's going to be in great shape for years to come.
Yeah, I believe Woodland's going to be a great team for a long time. Just as alumni, seeing Joe Lato, who's probably the first, the new coaches off of this has been a coach is Coach Anderson to Shea and Phipps, and there was always someone in the building from that original core of coaches that Anderson built back in 2001. And he's and Lato's the first guy outside of that, but he's from the town. He lives in the town of Beacon Falls. I see him at church on Sundays. He's a terrific guy, and he's doing a great thing with the youth program. So I think no matter what, Woodland's a game that every team has to circle. That's just it always is, and the kids here are tough. So
right. So let me ask you, Coach, how did you go about applying for this Derby job? Did you know right away you wanted to apply for it? I mean, did you talk with some people? Did you discuss it? I mean, how did it all come about for you?
yeah, so at the end of last year, I came out in the summer for when Steve Boehner, the former coach, I knew he was in the middle of baseball season, and I finally had a position at my work. I'm lucky enough to come coach. I reached out to him because I know Woodland had a new coach, and I wanted to try something new. And I believe that Derby's always been a sleeping giant of the valley. It's always been, they no matter what camp I went to, I never was able to play them in my career. They always were hitting hard and competing, and they've always had a great history. And everyone I feel like in Beacon Falls is Derby alumni somehow. I mean, I bump into someone and they played on some state championship team, and I love discussing and learning about it. But at the end of the year, when Steve was headed out, and I understand he has his family to take care of, and he's a terrific baseball coach in his own right as well. I knew I wanted to come back and help out these and like be there for these kids, because I fell in love with these kids like right coming on as a coach. Had built terrific relationships at a school that I didn't see myself at ever, and now I'm like, oh, I want to do whatever it takes to not only just be a coach here, but be the head coach, because I see a bright future for the program, even after such a wild year. But yeah, it was definitely an easy decision to make. I did discuss it with Tim Shea. I go to him about anything and talk to my parents, of course, and even talk to Steve. Going, what do you think about this idea that I try to take over this program and lead it? And they all gave me terrific votes of confidence. And my friends who still stay by me, a lot of kids who I graduated with and played with and went to college with and had relationships with, all were like, oh, well, we want to be around the program if you're going to be here as well. So it was I was lucky enough to have this terrific support system to give it a shot to apply. And I knew applying, I'm going to do my absolute best to get the position. And here we are.
Right. So, Coach, you basically have been the head coach for a little over a month now.
Mm-hmm.
So not you haven't had it that long. So, I mean, what was your first goal to the kids, or what did you convey to them in the first team meeting you had? What was the first goal for this football team at this moment?
When we met the Friday after I was appointed, we had a very good turnout of kids who came out, and a lot of new faces who just wanted to see who the new coach was. It was, I'm not only excited to be here, but we're going to compete. We're going to change this culture, and that's just going to start with we're going to be in the weight room 4 days a week, and we're going to establish a good summer lifting schedule. In the meantime, I will do my best to get you to camps and 7-on-7s, and it's just conveying that football is going to be a year-round thing. And we're gonna be in the weight room. If you're not doing a spring sport, I'm gonna expect you in the weight room. And if you're doing a spring sport, I'll see you in the weight room. So giving them that's the attitude, and we're gonna compete, and we're gonna play 10 games, and that's not gonna be a discussion we're ever gonna have. We're never gonna speak about what happened in the past. We're only gonna talk about what we're doing now and where we're going to in the future. And
right.
Got the message, and they're all about it.
I think too, Coach, one thing that's very important going forward is the youth football program in Derby. That really, the last few years, they've had trouble with the numbers and stuff like that. And I know they brought a good group of people on to kind of get that back and running again. But I think for the football team to be successful, it's good, in years to come, they need that Pop Warner program to be successful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Rodney Joyner, who's running Pop Warner right now, is doing a terrific job. I get texts from every week. We talk just to get updates because I want to give him everything I have as the varsity coach to make sure this program we're going to be feeding in the next group of kids, and it's going to be the same standard and the same culture. And it's tough when you have a city that has no youth program for a couple years and the kids are off playing at Seymour, Ansonia, or Woodland hasn't one now at a neighbor program, and it's like hard because like, oh, they should just be playing in town and build relationships with our guys in town. So that communication across the board with the whole Pop Warner panel has been the same. Like, let's get our boys back and build something here where in the past it's been very successful. I see a bunch of the youth Pop Warner photos, especially come up on my timeline at times, and it's like, well, that should be here now, and definitely something we're looking forward to, and it's a main focus of mine because youth program builds a solid varsity program.
Right. And Coach, it may take 2 or 3 years, but I would think eventually you want to resurrect that freshman program as well, because I think it's very important that these kids have a freshman football team, because it's very hard to ask kids as freshmen to be at the varsity level or JV level. It's really good that they have that freshman season as well.
Absolutely. Definitely want to build something with that, and that's going to come from Pop Warner. Right now, my big thing with freshmen is lifting them separately
Yeah.
and running them separately because I want them to build that relationship together. That's something being around Woodland, it was something we were really good at, is having the younger guys where the coaching staff is fully focused on them while the varsity are running, and then the varsity come in and lift while other coaches are out running them, and they get a taste for that program without the big daunting thing of, man, I got to keep up with these seniors, and wow, they're lifting a lot of weight. It's tough to follow, especially when you're just lifting the ball and understanding things. But right now we're splitting off the freshmen that way, and then come season, hopefully try to develop a JV program with the varsity team. And long term, ideally, yeah, I'd love a freshman team.
Right. And Coach, if I had to guess, you're 27 years old, 28 years old. So I would think that you want to be here long term. You're a young enough guy where realistically you could coach 20 to 30 years if you really wanted to. But I think it's important for these kids to have a coach who's not going to be here 2 years or not going to be here 5 years, somebody that's going to be there for the long run, because that's really going to build the program if they have a coach who's there long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 26 years old, so you got it. I turned 27 in July.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to rush to 27, but I definitely, that was the thing. My whole basis in the interview room is I definitely was the youngest guy applying, and I'm going to be here for as long as you guys will let me. I work in Stratford as a course lead. My job's not going to go anywhere. Knock on wood. But being here in the Valley, I don't plan on leaving the Valley, and I plan on being here, especially building Derby, because this is a project. You don't see the finish line now, but when you do, it's going to be a well-oiled machine at this point, and we're going to be mowing through the finish line.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Coach, who are the assistants that you've taken on for this season? Have you hired a few? And I'm sure there's some from last year as well, correct?
Yep. So I'm bringing back Matt Niglary, Albarella Trophy winner, great football player at Derby, assistant track coach. He's a health teacher in the building. Really excited about having him. He was here last year. Glad to have him back. Chris Grillo, who also is an English teacher in the building, North Haven grad, terrific mind for football. He's staying around, and they're both teachers in the building. So that was two guys I wouldn't be able to do this job without. They're the in-school presence that I need. Especially being a guy who works on the outside. I brought on Len Duffus, who lives in Ansonia. He's coached years at West Haven, and he's coached at Hill House most recently. That's it. So he's had time coaching O-line, and he knows the kids very well. He actually has a nonprofit in Ansonia, Valley Save Our Youth. So great stuff he's doing there. Bringing on a couple volunteers. Bringing on David Ahern, who at this time he played at Derby's offensive lineman. He actually walked in the weight room, wanted to be a part of it, and I was like, yes, all hands on deck. So terrific guy to have. I'm getting help from from a Woodland alumni, a couple actually. Eric Colladell, who was a defensive lineman for us, all division guy towards the end of his career. Played college football at the Division III level at WestCon as a linebacker. He works in Derby. He cares about building programs, and he's an animal of a weightlifter. So he's a great guy to have around the program. And I'm also bringing on assistants, Brian Reese, who was a senior captain with me at Woodland, a roommate with me at Sacred Heart University, best friend. I go to him about everything. So he's a big part of why I even was applying for this job, is because he's pushing me along, helping me get prepared. He's just an elite human. He's a doctor of physical therapy, works out of Cromwell, long-term coach at Woodland. A lot of people call him Mr. Elite or Mr. Accountability because he's a guy you can count on. But I have a couple other guys still talking to, still having discussions with some more alumni, because I want to bring back as much as I can from the past, from Derby, going forward. So if anyone's open, looking for a position at Derby, there's always positions open. I'm always willing to sit down and have a discussion.
Right. And Coach, you hear different things from different people. And I know there was talk that they weren't sure if Derby was going to have a varsity season, but you are going to have a varsity season, correct? I mean, that's a definite, that's not even an issue, correct?
No, we're going to have a varsity season.
Right. And let me ask you, who are some of the seniors on this team that you really are looking for to step up and are going to be a big help for you guys?
Yeah. 3 seniors that come right to mind. So Gio Vicens, he is a monster of a man. He just squatted 485 pounds the other day.
Wow.
6'4", has all the intangibles as an offensive tackle. I plan on seeing him make a big impact this year. He's came along as a leader, and I've watched him grow in such a short time, especially watching his junior season and his struggles to get going at some points. He's already addressed that, and he's already moved on from it. His attitude and character has changed so much. I personally cannot wait to see him play on Fridays. He's going to be dominant. Jermaine Higgs, I call him the 50 freak. He's a guy who also squats a ton of weight, probably 385 in the weight room right now. Just his work ethic is unlike I've seen in most kids. Being around multiple programs at this point, he's a guy who we relied on last year for a lot of things, but he's going to do so much good for us this year. And lastly, Carlos Allen, who's a track star right now, running, doing the hurdles. His work ethic and attitude has come such a long way. I have to highlight it. His communication with me, I mean, he blows up my phone all the time, just questions about football. And I love it. He's a great kid, and all 3 of those kids I plan on making senior leaders and guys who are going to help push this program to the forefront. And they're 3 guys that are going to compete at all levels, and they've already brought on some newer faces that weren't playing football last year. So they're doing a terrific job in the school, doing their own recruiting, getting our guys.
Right. So, Coach, let's take the wins and losses out of the equation just for a second. What do you think is the most important thing you need to do for this season alone to establish yourself as a head coach, stuff like that? What do you think you need to do, the number one thing that'll help this program the most in year 1?
Sure. Culture. Just in short, it's building the culture, getting kids to respond to something, believing in something. And you know, it's great because the great history of the program as it has I see it all on the wall and in the locker room, all the great teams that have played at Derby and the great history and pride Derby has, bringing that back to the forefront, giving kids a mentality. That's just a thing that Woodland was very good at, with building a culture and identity. And it's something we started, but weren't able to finish last year. Right now, that's my main focus, is building a culture, because the culture is going to dictate, it's going to connect the people around us, and it's going to dictate how we do in the season. And when adversity hits, how we're going to address adversity. Culture and competing. I mean, and on Friday nights, it's just compete at all levels. And I believe we're there. It's just establishing that culture that we could believe that we're going to be there and that we're going to be in every game playing for 10 games, no matter who it is.
Right. And Coach, what a great, type of thing you have around you, in the sense that you have a beautiful facility to work with, a field that you could practice on every day, which is key in my opinion, because the more they practice on the field, the more they know the field, stuff like that. But I mean, you have all these great things that just add into being a coach that, it only benefits the team. I think the players and everybody else is when you have something nice every day to come to and enjoy, it really just makes the kids want to play football.
Absolutely. The facility is state of the art. It's a college facility,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Going out there and being able to practice, it could be raining out and we're practicing, and there's no problem with like our gear getting muddy, and it's the little things, and those little things go a long way, especially saving gear and having that time in the field and the resources we have. I mean, no school has multiple weight rooms, and we have one downstairs right in the field house, and we have one up top in the school. Lucky to have the facility, and we're going to use every inch of it, and we're grateful for it as a staff, and the players are for sure grateful for it.
And I bet you don't even want to leave there half the time. I mean, you could do so many things. You could go over chalk talk. You could have coaches meetings, watch film. You have all this stuff around you that is so good. I mean, you probably are going to be the type of guy that's going to be at that football field from like 2 to 9 o'clock every day.
This is the one time you haven't caught me at the field. I'm there every day doing something for the program.
Yeah.
It is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job in the first place. But just the ability to have, like you said, coaches meetings in the coach's office, and using our equipment room to lay out stuff and make sure everything matches our vision. It's a key thing I've been working on in the off season, and it's a key thing that we have just right at the grasp of our hands. No program I know in the state really has a facility like Derby's whatsoever at any level. So taking advantage of what we have and using our great resources, I think is going to help us in the long run. And it also is just, I'm grateful for it every day.
Right. And Coach, you talked about alumni, which is very important. Do you plan down the road or even this season to try to get former players to maybe speak to the kids certain times just to kind of tell them about Derby football and stuff like that? Because I think that's important too, that they really know the history of Derby football, because it's going to make them want to perform so much more.
Yeah, I definitely want to have alumni come down, talk to the kids. I've buzzed a couple guys who I know played during my time who are terrific football players at Derby, and ask for their opinion on things and what they would want to see in a program. I'm always open to listening to alumni and any stories they have, and if they want to come talk to the kids, I'll always make time to get them down there and talk to the kids, and just learn about the great things they had with their former coaches, whether it was DeCenzo or Coach Lou. Just having that baseline of terrific history is something we need to take advantage of in Derby, and I believe it hasn't been like that in a little while. So getting the kids open to like, wow, this program really is a great program, and it really had these amazing moments, and you might not see it now, but we all started somewhere. And even these great teams, especially at Derby, they didn't start as a 10-0 state championship team.
Yeah.
They worked their butts off for that, and they built something for that, and they have relationships to this day. I know even if I talk to Coach Anderson, he talks about Jay Palmieri and the rest of that team. And if you talk to Jay Palmieri, he talks to the rest of that team and about the rest of that team and the relationships they all have. And it's so unique, and it's amazing. And that's what Valley football does. And they bring each other together, and they have relationships forever. And that's a lot of people who I even graduated with at Woodland. We had a lot of the seniors that I played with. We're all like brothers to this day and have a terrific relationship and a group chat that still goes. And we didn't even go near as far as some of these Derby teams, but we just had a great pride for the amount of work we put in. So highlighting the amount of work that happened in the past, I think will only help bring us into the future and help kids realize, wow, this is what coming together looks like. So yeah, I definitely plan on bringing around alumni in a short answer.
Right. And Coach, one thing I noticed, I saw the softball team. They previewed the softball season, and I could not believe the amount of girls who are on the team this year. It doubled from last year, and it's also Jamie Bartone's first year as a head coach. So, I mean, that's the important thing, is getting kids out for these programs and stuff like that. That's only going to make them more successful. Right now, every day when you are in the weight room, how many kids do you have right now, if you had to guess?
Outside of the kids playing track, because they about have a majority of our team. About 60% of the teams doing track, but we have about 12 to 13 kids a day that aren't doing a spring sport that are there to lift. The rest of the kids, I got a bunch of kids playing baseball, and baseball's doing a terrific job. They're off to a great start, and highlighting softball, they're doing awesome too, and Coach Bartone's doing a great job.
Right. So would you say you probably have over 30 kids signed up at the moment, if you had to guess?
I'd like to guess that, yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good number to
Yep.
start, because
Mhm.
that'll only grow. I mean, you have to build momentum. So that's only going to grow as time goes on. And I also think, too, Coach, that if the kids see that you're motivated and the coaching staff's motivated, they're going to be motivated. And I feel that's very important. And it seems like that's also the mission statement for the coaching staff, is to keep these kids interested.
Absolutely. We're a very high energy coaching staff, and we're a hyper positive coaching staff. So just relaying that to the kids every day and being around their faces every day. I always have a rule where the high five rule is always in effect. So always handing out high fives and always being around the kids, their good, bad, ugly times. You're there for them, and you're in a positive mood, and you're always giving them the right steps to take, especially right now when it's not football season. Just making sure you're around, and when you're there in a positive way. You're not there to say anything negative or be negative. Just help them build them in their spring sport or weightlifting, and give them the tools. But I'm lucky enough to have a very positive coaching staff, and we relay that very well.
Right. And Coach, another thing that's going to be a first for Derby this year, so you're going to make history with that, is you guys are going to play Oxford on Thanksgiving, correct? So,
Yes.
I mean, the Shelton game, I was obviously sad to see it go, because it's been there forever. But realistically, this makes the most sense at this present time for Derby to play Oxford, because both teams can compete with each other. So just talk about that. And are you guys excited about that new
Oh,
Thanksgiving game? Yeah.
absolutely. On a personal level, Joe Stockmole, the head coach of Oxford, a great guy. Neighbors with my mother growing up, so longtime family friend with the Stockmoles. So it's even funnier that I'm playing him on Thanksgiving now, and right down the Housatonic River, just where my family grew up, and a lot of a lot of people, whether they came from Oxford to play at Derby when Oxford didn't have a school, they were playing at Seymour, they had Derby, they had the neighboring schools to play at. Bringing this game to the forefront. I know Shelton has had such a long time rivalry. I've looked through the record, and the amazing stuff Derby's done, especially against Shelton. Um, Definitely is highlighted, and will be missed, because that game was a terrific game. But bringing in Oxford makes sense. A league rival, always been a rival. The kids have always mentioned something about Oxford, and they're a flatline competition to us. I think competition wise, it's great. Both Class S, Double S schools playing each other. That's first and foremost. Second, just the geography is it's if you couldn't, if we're not playing Shelton, that's the next possible best team you could be playing, just based off of
Right.
geography and history. Because Oxford, even though in their short time of being a high school, they have a lot of history of their great players going off and being also football players at the neighboring Valley schools. So now with them having one, they want to be a team like what Woodland has done and build this powerhouse in the Valley. They want to build one as well, and we want to build one as well. So especially in the NVL. So doing that, and two newer teams to the NVL, it's a honor, and I'm really excited for the game, and it's going to be a great game.
Right.
Mm.
Coach, with the exception of Shelton, is the schedule pretty much the same as it was last year? I mean, I know they do it like every 2 years. I mean, are you playing the same group of teams you played last year, or has it changed a little bit?
They're still working on the schedule. They're actually meeting. For the
Right.
most part, I'd have to assume we're playing the same teams. I know
Right.
it's a 2-year schedule. They did mention a couple scenarios we're playing, but we're still going to play the Ansonians of the world. We're still going to play Woodland. We're still going
Right.
to play the neighboring towns. And I relayed that, especially to our athletic director, that's important to play the lower valley teams, regardless of if they went to a competition schedule or not. I believe just geography wise, it makes sense. You have to play the team one exit north, team one exit south. So
Right. And is it going to be a little strange playing against Woodland? I mean, you coached all those years with them and you played for them. I mean, is that a little strange, or would it be probably a little weird if you were coaching at Seymour, maybe, because that's their biggest rival?
yeah, but I mean, regardless of a valley school, going back to Woodland last year, was a weird feeling, just because I've made such great memories there and had a great career there. And walking through like the weight room before the game, like, oh man, I miss a lot of things, but you know, it's the end of the day. I'm a Derby first guy. The day I came on, I tried to not forget about the stuff I've done at Woodland. I address it, but playing Woodland, it's gonna feel different, but I'm excited. I'm more excited, and I'll be probably more jacked up than the kids. Just because you want to go back and you want to beat the alumni that passed on you. So
Right. So, Coach, before we go, what is your message to the Derby fans? And what I mean by that is the former players who have played there, players who have won championships, the old time Derby fans who go to the practices and then they also go to the games for 50 years religiously. What's your message to them? What do you want to stress to them?
This opportunity I take with great seriousness and great pride. I cannot wait for us to show you what we've been doing and culminating through the off season, especially with the great careers that most of the Derby alumni and the Derby faithful have had here, and the fact that this town, this city believes it's in a program even through all the years of tough losses and tough records sometimes. I just want to promise you I'm going to work my butt off to make sure we get back there. I'm all in, and I'm excited and I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm excited to see all the Derby alumni at games. I'm excited to talk to Derby alumni and former players just to learn about their career and learn about the old coaches they have, because I'm sure I could take a couple pointers. Just very, very excited for the opportunity again, and I take this very seriously.
Well, Coach, I want to first off thank you for coming on for a few minutes today. It was a pleasure, and I really, just by talking to you this last half hour, it seems like you're highly motivated, which is important, and we really want to see this team win. And everybody's rooting for you, rooting for these kids, and just go out there and do the best you can. But be here for a long time. That's the most important thing. We want to see you coaching Derby for many years to come.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it. And I plan on being here for a very long time.
Well, I appreciate it, Coach. And folks, that is Coach Jeremy Clark. And like I said, go to the games, support this team. This is a new coaching staff, and they look very motivated to bring this back. So we got to give them the support, and let's root them on and go Big Red. Thank you, Coach.
Go Big Red.
Take care.
Take care.
Take care.